In this video, I'm going to show you about FlexBox, how it works, and how to apply FlexBox to a simple layout. FlexBox is a layout module of CSS optimized for user interface design and layout. FlexBox offers us complete control over the alignment, order, sizing, and direction of our layout. This is the layout that we will be attempting to achieve, but first, let me reset it. And let's start from that point. And there the layout has been reset. All the flex related items have been removed. And now you can see what it looks like. We will begin with a header, which contains a nav element and a div element with the banner class. Let's add the CSS property that starts the magic to the nav element, display flex. Now that we have our container, we can start working on the container with a couple of properties that will affect the immediate children of the container. The first property is flex direction. This property determines the main axes of the container. Row will create a horizontal main axis, and column will create a vertical axis. This is important, as we'll see later on in the layout. For our purposes, we're going to stick with row and create a horizontal axis. We now have a base container set up. Let's have a look at aligning the items within the container. First property we can use to do alignment is justify content, which it's just a few property values that we have a look at throughout the layout. For the nav element though, we will be using the space between value. As you can see, the sign in and sign up is not really aligned as what we want it to be. To fix this though, we will create a nested flex container within the nav element. In the menu items. Now, as you can see, what happened is it moved to the edge, but this is now not a nested element. Just to create a nest, we will just add display flex to the items, and there you have it. That is the nav bar done. The next section is the banner section. And just to display what actually happens with the items, I'm just going to add a small 1 pixel border in white, which we will remove once we are done. Let's begin by adding display flex to create our container. Next, we add our direction. Which in this case will be a row once again. Nice. As you can see, we have our items aligned to the top. And just to add nice even spacing, we're going to use justify content with space evenly. Save. Okay. There are 3 different space elements. A space between, which uses that puts all the remaining space between the items. We have space evenly, which takes up all the space and wraps it evenly around the items. And then space around, which just puts it a little bit further and creates equal space around the item. Nice. Now, as you can see, we have our items aligned to the top and with some nice even spacing between them. The next property that can affect the alignment of items is align items. Intuitive, right? This property aligns the items on the cross axes. So if it's a row, it is a vertical, and if it's a column, it's in the horizontal. So since this is row, that means that it will align the items vertically. To align our items, let's try a couple of property values. The default is FlexStart, which I am absolutely lying about. The default, it seems, is stretch. Yes, that's exactly right. So stretch. The next one we have is FlexStart. Now you can see that it moved the items, all the items to the top. Flex end, it moves all the items to the bottom of the vertical axis. We will be using the center property value for our layout. For the first child item property that can actually affect the layout, we will use align self on the class for the child item. Now, this overrides the container items declaration. This gives us that control we so desperately want. Now for the help, we want it to be at the top, so it's flex start. There's that, and I'm going to copy this, put it on the call to action button, and instead of flex start, we're going to have flex end. And there you have it. Nicely done. I'm going to remove the borders, hit save, and there we have it. Banner div done. For the photo section, we will do a lot of the same, but we will use flex wrap as well, and we'll see how that affects our layouts. Then I'll show you a little shorthand to combine flex direction and flex wrap. So let's start off again by creating our container. By adding display flex. You can see the default is row, which we want. Flex direction. That's row. And then the next one is flex wrap, which is no wrap by default. As you can see, that changed nothing. But if we do add the wrap property, we can see that it actually changes, that when we use the wrap property, we can see that a child's items maintain their width. Let's just justify the content once again and add it to the center. And there you go. That's very close to what we want. Just to show you the shorthand, is we change this to flex flow, row, and wrap. Save, and it's exactly the same. The other wrap that we have is wrap reverse, which actually changes not only the flow or the order of the child items, but it actually inverses complete flow on the cross axes. We're going to use wrap. Great. Now let's say we want to change the order of the photos by switching the places of the first and last photo. We can do this by adding the order property to the child item. By setting the last item order to -1 and the first item's order property to 1 and save, we can actually see that it's changed the order. The first or the last item is -1, which is this one. If we look at the HTML for the photos, first photo, because we changed the order, it actually changed the placement of those items. Very handy if you want specific changes done in specific layouts. For the small article section, we just want to change the order so that article 2 is first, article 1 is second, and article 3 can stay where it is. We create the container element by adding display flex. We use the shorthand flex flow to determine the direction and the wrapping, and that's it. Because we are using the direction of column, so the main axis is now vertical. That means that the cross axis is now horizontal. Now to change the order, we add the order property again to the item, adding order -1 to article 2, and order 1 to article 3. And there you have it. Simple. The last piece of the layout is the footer, where we will look at the grow, shrink, and basis properties that can be applied to the child items in the container. To start, we create our container by adding display flex to the footer. Then we add flex flow row no wrap. We also want to justify the items as a space between, so the outer items can be on the edges as such. As you can see, there's quite a bit of space between the elements. We want to have this not as prominent by making the child items bigger. Now, to grow items so it takes up all the space, we add the flex grow property and give it a value of 1. This is the factor of the space that an item can grow to the main size. The main size, this is the size of the element on which the flex direction is dependent, the container. To ensure that all the space is divided equally, we set the grow property on all the items. As you can see, the space is distributed evenly between the 3 elements. Now, this element is bigger because the content is bigger. If we want an item to be bigger than the others, we can set the factor to 2. And there you can see. So it took a half of this space and a half of this space and added it to this one. So this one has 2 and this one is 1, 1. Another property we can use to affect the size of the item is flex shrink. This is the factor by which an item will try to shrink to. If we add this property to the social links item, you can see that it basically loses all space it grew into and shrinks till the width only allows for the content within the item. Another property that we use is flex basis. It is used to set the initial size that will be used by an item before it is affected by the grow and shrink properties. I like to think of it as the starting value. So if we add minimum size to flex bases, let's say 33%. You can see the size change. These three properties is combined within one property, which is flex. The first option is the flex grow property. The second one is the flex shrink, and the third one is flex basis. Now you can see that I put grow to 0, shrink to 1, and basis to auto. Whenever you create a display flex container, all items within that container get these properties as the defaults, as you can see when we do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to actually be do not shrink, and then this 33%. With that, and there we have a nicely spaced, evenly spaced footer. And we're done. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial on FlexBox. I hope you learned something. If you want to look at the source code, you can find a link to the source in the description below. Be sure to check out my other videos and my live stream every week. If you like this type of content and would like to see some more, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video specifically, hit that like button or dislike if you think it's deserving. Have a great day, everybody.